Hey everybody, it's Chris Harrison here again with an episode of The Main Points with Main Place. Today we have Cassie Yoder, the owner of Cass Concepts. I know there's a lot that falls under Cass Concepts, so we're going to get to a lot of that. But first, tell us a little bit about what Cass Concepts is, if you would, please.
Yeah, well, we are a full-fledged creative agency. So we're a marketing firm that is here in downtown Decatur. I started the company back in 2005. So on the event side, so primarily corporate events and private events, but with every event, you still have to market it. Mm-hmm. So no event is great unless people are attending it.
Right.
And so I had a background working over at Allerton and the U of I, and so had individuals like provosts and chancellors say, we're going to host this, or we're going to have a retreat or something like that. And the idea was there, the concept was there, but then how do you get people there? So then it spurred into, okay, well, now you're going to need collateral, you're going to need event management, and how do we market this? Who are we marketing to? So anyway, it really grew from this love of like connection with people.
Yes.
And people having ideas, and how do you take those concepts and make it a full-fledged event or business or passion project or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's evolved into, you have a physical location. You're located at 100 East Main, which we're downtown Decatur right now, and I like to call it the island between Main and Merchant.
It's true, we are.
and so you've popped up there in a sense, and there's a lot of action going on there. What is happening there?
So we operate our marketing firm out of there. So my team that is their home. So, for the longest time, we were kind of nomads. We were remote working before that. Remote working was a thing.
Before it was the thing,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we had the convenience of popping in and out of businesses. So, if I had a meeting at AgriFab in Sullivan, I'd go there. If I was over in Arcola and had at the Best Western Hotel or Carriage Crossing Senior Living, you just set up shop depending on how long you were going to meet or who you were meeting with. But for us, the growth pattern that we had, we really needed a place to just put our roots. Right. I think, and we joke that, people like Spencer, my videographer, was like, I need a place for my gear. Like right. It's, my coat closet is getting too full,
Right. Yep, we understand
and
that.
That's a true thing too. So landing there downtown seemed to make the most sense. And for us, we have so many clients that are also downtown, but the marketing firm is run out of there, but then we also have a space that is what we call the collective. So it's Prairie Commons Business Collective.
Okay.
We do a lot of business coaching. So from a lot of the startups, it really honestly, Chris, started during COVID because we had our regular marketing clients. Mm-hmm. But then I would have those clients reach out to me and say, hey, the person that I am getting my candles from that we sell in our boutique, like now they're having a supply chain, demand issue. So I don't really know if they're going to last. Or, hey, we have these people that sell jewelry or shirts or all these different things that were inside their stores. And they said, well, most of the time they're going to these markets, in Atlanta or St. Louis, and they're making a ton of their revenue at those markets, those massive, crafter conventions.
Right.
And those are all now shut down because it's 2020.
Right.
And I can't have those products go away. So is there anything you can do to help them pivot? And so we started having these connections and these conversations with businesses that mostly were operating either in a warehouse or in their homes. They didn't have brick and mortars, but they were distributing their products to boutiques in the area within about a 75-mile radius. And so to have those kind of places that you didn't even know existed, soccer moms that have these full-fledged basements that are, basically perfumeries or candle making shops. But most of them really don't have a desire to move outside into a brick and mortar. But COVID hit them pretty hard. If you're not having those massive outlets to be able to connect with your vendors and say, here's what I sell. I'm located in Central Illinois, and they're selling to Atlanta and to all these shops everywhere. So what do you do? What's the solution?
So when the Atlanta and Chicago, St. Louis events shut down, you help those makers that are working out of their basement or the kitchen or the garage pivot to marketing more direct to the boutiques then? Or
that was a lot of
all the boutiques?
And a lot of it was even just online. So for so many of them, their business model did not consist of having either wholesale options online or even just setting up as an individual retailer online, because they already had wholesale relationships from being at these vendors, the fairs and whatnot. So they would sell to a business like Giggles already, had a partnership with, Giggles. And then, but at that point, when you're not being able to reach out to any other boutiques and be able to sell to any other places, then, it basically was diminishing. So that pivot really came from okay, you're going to have to get on Instagram. You're going to have to get a website. Now, that doesn't mean that you put all 300 products on there. So there was a lot of coaching, because at that point, your whole business model, and I think for so many businesses, their business model shifted during COVID. And so for us, I kind of joke and I said, instead of going to grad school and doing all of this for communication and marketing, like sometimes it should have maybe been psychology, because there's so much, how that is with the coaching. And I mean, even through selling a house, all of the range of emotions that go through, a person during those stages. And it really is no different with business development and business growth, that sometimes growth happens so quickly for a local or a small business that one of two things happened. They don't know how to go ahead and project for the long game. And so there's this like energy boost, and maybe, the people around you say, this is going to work, this is going to work, but then you don't have all your ducks in a row. So we've really tried to come in and help those businesses say, it's always fun to have an event go really great, or a pop-up. So if you're going to host a pop-up, for that to go great. But at the same time, how do you have that kind of sale month after month after month, if that's what your goal is,
And I think what I see is with a lot of these businesses, they're really great at making the perfume or the candle or the craft or the cookie or whatever it is they do. But when it comes to marketing myself or running a business or running an online retail shop, they didn't go to school on that. They don't know how to do that. They know how to do what they're best at. And that's where they come to someone like Cass Concepts. I know when we started Main Place Real Estate, we came to Cassie and we said, okay, we're selling houses. How do we tell our story? How do we talk about our houses? So that's definitely something that not everybody has the skill for or the capacity for. That was our thing. We knew what we needed to do, just couldn't do it.
No, there's not enough hours in the day. A lot of times. And I will say, honestly, probably 80% of the clients that walk through our doors that I sit down and have a cup of coffee with, I mean, the first thing that you can tell is you're no longer doing what you're passionate about. So it's like your example. You're no longer selling houses because you're doing all of these other things that are taking away from the skill set and maybe the gifts that you were given. You're not doing those things anymore. And it could be something from a baker. I mean, we see that a lot with a lot of startups that they're no longer baking because now they're doing payroll and they're doing management and they're doing online and they're taking pictures. Now, I also see the shift that sometimes businesses will get to that point that they kind of, it's almost like plateau. We had a boost, we had a growth, things were going really well. And now we just don't know how to get over the hump of we just feel a little stagnant. And so usually it's those conversations of what do we need to do to shake things up? Or how do we expand the market that you're already in? Because I think that sometimes we get so caught up in the clients that we already have that we forget that sometimes there's more, there's a bigger pool out here, So how do we tell them that you exist?
In real estate, we always talk about the pool of people you know versus the pool of people you don't know. And the pool of people you don't know is always larger. And that's what you help people do, is help get to that pool of people you don't know.
And sometimes people have pieces that they're really comfortable with. You'll see somebody that's oh, I post to Instagram 4 times a day. You're like, well, that's excessive, maybe. But also, there's a lot of people that are not on Instagram. So how are you reaching them? If that may be something you enjoy and you love, but it may not be really where your people are. So it's trying to find those outlets too for them.
Yes. So in pop-up shop, that's used a lot. What is a pop-up shop and what are your pop-up shops? What does that mean for downtown Decatur? Because I'm seeing them happen. What is happening?
Well, let me give you some background. So one of the things that I have done for almost 5 years now is I've always been a mentor with the CEO program. So the program comes into area high schools. Those high school students then create a business, mostly their junior or senior year, and then they run that business for the duration then of their senior year. And so it has become this running joke. So I do a lot with the Illini Prairie, which is over then in the Moultrie Douglas area. So I've always been a mentor and done and spoke to them about business or talked about marketing and getting them kind of through those stages. And so then being able to tap into even, the Mount Zion group that's over here as well. So the thought process was there's several of those kids over the last 5 years that, they're rock stars. And So some of that pop-up even started from those conversations of them saying, I'm going to graduate high school and I do want to go to college, but I sure would love to be able to continue this. So the idea of operating a brick and mortar store during college, that's not feasible, at all on any level. But to have a pop-up to where you can say, if you want to continue to make what you make or create what you create, we have a space for you to be able to host it and to be able to sell it. So what we've done is now some of the area businesses do have some cool creative little pop-up ideas that are within their boutiques to drive traffic. So obviously that's one major point.
Right.
But for us, our whole goal is the exposure side of it for these businesses. So for a lot of those businesses that come and do the pop-ups, we'll do it collectively. So there's multiple businesses on the same day. So we love doing First Fridays here in downtown Decatur.
Oh, good.
So a lot of times that's one of our big days that we do. And then we also pick like different Saturdays when we know there's a lot of things going on downtown.
Right.
But what it does is it gives them exposure to other people, like we talked about, that are outside of their pool, because for some of those kids, they may have really strong relationships or their parents have strong relationships in Mount Zion or some of the ones that are in Moultrie, Douglas counties. But if you start showing them that there is a ton of people that are coming to downtown Decatur to shop.
Yes.
They're not from Macon County,
We just talked about that.
Yes, that you see a different traffic pattern. So when you start just kind of mixing the waters with all these different businesses and letting these younger startups get exposed to these different types of clientele, the growth happens a lot more rapidly. But you have to be ready for that growth. So I think that's where we really try to help coach them. So for some areas, they have little pop-ups, or some businesses, they'll have pop-ups, and most of those businesses are set, they're good to go. They come in, they set up, and they get going. But for us, we really try to make it an educational part. So I think people that even walk through our door, that's part of it too, is explaining to them, hey, this is a single mom. She's been doing this jewelry, these earrings on the side. She works a full-time job. She's a full-time mom.
Right.
So it's getting to know the story. And I think that's ultimately what sets us apart as a marketing firm, is that we market. Yes, we do digital ads. Yes, we do all of the things. But I think fundamentally we're storytellers. And that's really where it all begins, is that I don't believe that people buy into your services. I think that people buy into you. What is your story? So when someone knows why you bake the bread that you're making, or whose recipe you learned it from, and you sat there by your great grandma all those years, that's what they want to know,
Right.
And so I think that that's where we really try to shift that focus of, don't put the pricing of your bread or your earrings on here. Okay. Tell the story. And that could be visual, that could be verbal, but it could be on your website, it could be on your social media, whatever that is. But it's the story that really matters to people. And I think that's how then you connect with them to a point that they become repeat customers over time.
And I don't know who it was, the steak restaurant that said, we don't sell the steak, we sell the sizzle.
Yes, I love that.
That's definitely what you're doing.
Yeah.
On the notion of pop-up, to a little bit of a plug here at Main Place, actually, we have the best patio in downtown Decatur.
Oh, I've said this for decades.
Right.
You do.
Yes. and so we're trying to be creative with that, reaching out to people we don't know. We're doing a pop-up patio. So on Mondays, every other Monday, we're having a food truck come to the parking lot, grab some food, helping a small business there too, a food truck business on a Monday, which is kind of a slower business day for food trucks, and then they can come use our patio. So just kind of a plug there for pop-up patio.
It really is a great idea, because I just think to myself, now sometimes, and I'm in and out of so many communities. We have a lot of different city contracts or county contracts. So we're in and out of so many places. And I know that sometimes local businesses will have a little bit of a rumbling of like, oh, what are these pop-ups doing? Like, are they going to take business away from us? But what I think about is that there is a lot of businesses in our region that have stood the test of time, or they have been inherited from a grandparent or a parent that passed it on. Okay. So they're pretty well set, but I do feel like there has to be continual growth.
Absolutely.
Vitality of your community really stems from what is new and fresh, and how can what has been here for 10, 15, 20 years merge with what is new and up and coming. Because I don't look at that, and I think that if we could shift our focus from competition and we say it's community over competition. And for some of these places, a pop-up is a perfect way for them to get their foot in the door. Right. So, for us, it's really convenient that I don't have to pack my lunch every other Monday. Right. That's what we joke about, that we're like, this is great. And we all hate having to pick where we're going to go for lunch.
Right.
So we just know, okay, every other Monday, this is where we're heading to. But at the same time, we really feel like that it is the pop-ups, whether it's food, whether it is a local business, whether it is, I've got my son selling sweet corn, he went and picked it in the morning and now he's out there selling sweet corn. I just think to myself, it shows people that, there is a lot of entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
And sometimes you have to just give them a platform and a chance to be able to do that. And that first option, I think 50 years ago was, well, here's a brick and mortar.
Right.
Well, let's get them to that point.
Right.
But there's a lot of steps in between. And so that's our goal, that if they can start getting a customer base during these pop-ups and being able to host them there whenever we have, tie into community events like Witches Night Out or the parades or whatnot, get that exposure going.
Yes.
And then eventually, then I will need to call you and be like, hey, I got somebody.
Exactly.
I need to look at some commercial stuff, help them out.
Yes.
So I really do believe it's all boats rise with the tide in so many ways, but.
And if you look at downtown Decatur, there's the North Street Music Festival that's happening, the farmers markets. It's like every weekend now you drive through downtown and you're like, what's going on in Central Park?
Yeah.
Which is what it should be.
Yes.
And it's creativity, it's art, it's music, it's food, it's fun. We talked kind of off camera about the number of new people that are coming to Decatur. Now is the perfect time for them to want to explore downtown. And through that, they're going to discover or rediscover the brick and mortars that are here that have been here forever.
Yeah.
So
it really
is complimentary for everybody to be creative and open and flexible, because that will help brick and mortar also.
Yeah. I think sometimes people hate I'm the first one to say it. Whenever somebody does have a bad attitude towards something, or they'll say, well, there's just nothing to do, and it's the funniest.
Right.
Our team, we really kind of enjoy that. We love when someone says it because it opens the door of an opportunity to be like, okay, what day on your calendar are you looking for something?
Right. Yeah.
Because it's beyond the weekends as well. There's literally something that is happening in Macon County during every single day of the week. Now, I understand you may not know where to go, or maybe a person is like, well, I'm not on social media. So, okay, that's fine. But there is so many connectors. There's so many business people that are connectors that know what's going on. And so I always encourage people, before you say there's nothing to do, it's a matter of saying, what is there to do?
Right.
Because there really is.
And what do you want to do?
Yes.
We'll find a place for
and
you
I think
for
it's
that.
also year round too, because sometimes people say so much happens during the warmer season, and that's true. That's great.
It's easier.
It really is. But I also think to myself, even just with the Lincoln Theater, there's things to do indoors that are right here in our backyard that have air conditioning or have heat, depending on the time of the year.
So we've talked a lot about Decatur, and we're here in Decatur. I know you're doing some things outside of Decatur and something really exciting. I think by the time this runs, it will be over, but...
We have a long run.
Okay.
I think we're going to get lucky.
Tell us more about what you're doing outside of Decatur, actually.
So, Chris, I'm from Sullivan. And so just being kind of a local small town person, we ran in 2015 to 2019 a theater production company over in Arcola. So it was inside the Best Western Plus Hotel.
Okay.
They have a convention center, so we converted that into a theater, and we shared the space within wedding clients. So we get done with a show, convert it back over, switch it, change out, and it looked like a wedding venue.
Right.
And so we operated Green Mill Village Theater for those 5 years. And then because of COVID, we stopped and took a hiatus. But our partnerships continued because there's a lot of these similar locations that are in Amish country of Indiana, of Ohio, Pennsylvania, down in Sarasota, Florida. And the Blue Gate Musical Company started in those areas. And so during that run in Arcola, we partnered with them. During our hiatus, we weren't sure what we were going to do, if we're going to bring it back or not. But I stayed in contact with the writer and the composer, Wally Nason. And we just felt like we had 70,000 people that came through those doors for, it's family friendly, it's Christian based, and there's not a lot of family friendly things. So I say from 8 months old to 108 years old, somebody's going to love a show there.
Sure.
And it's a very unique experience. They're longer run shows. So we don't do a weekend or a 2 week. So the goal is that you run them for about 3 months, and you boost the economy because you're bringing in church groups and you're bringing in tour bus groups. So it's a very different business philosophy than some of the local theaters and the surrounding communities that really just hit the local traffic, or maybe you get something outside of a 60-mile radius. So the marketing for the theater really expands, and you want it to be to where you're hitting those bus groups that are coming and staying 2-3 days at a time. So we shifted our venue. So we found a home in Penn Station in Arthur, Illinois. It's a beautiful venue. I mean, it's made for theater. So while I love being and having the hotel part of it, which was great for the bus groups there at Best Western in Arcola, ultimately that changeover doesn't have to happen anymore. So that the workload is nice. So they're able to just come in. So we kick off The Legend of Noah's Ark. So it's a little play on that. It's a mystery musical, so it's a 90-minute show. So we've really taken, I think, a lot of what we learned with the shutdown of COVID of saying, okay, people want something quick. So we don't want to sit through a 3-hour musical anymore. You know, there's a time and place for those beautiful things, but our venue is different. It's 90 minutes. You get in and out. There's no intermission. Exactly. It gives you time to explore the area and to do things. So we have such a strong market to where, you know, Springfield, Decatur, Terre Haute, all these Bloomington, Peoria, all these surrounding communities came to the one in Arcola, and I've already started buying tickets for the one in Arthur. And so I think that's the other piece to the puzzle, is that there is such a synergy between the communities that, you know, what we have found, you know, I just got a phone call for a box office. We have a job opening available, and a lady called me from Mount Zion, and she said, I go there on Wednesday nights because they have bluegrass. And she said, I have loved Penn Station ever since it's opened. And so I think that there is this, you know, misconception that like that shopping local or supporting local is only just the hometown you live in. And I don't know, I don't believe in that philosophy. I think that it truly is our region. I think Central Illinois is what is important, and that synergy to be able to play off of those things, that when we have a sporting event here in Decatur, people are looking for things to do. They're always looking for things to do. And we even joke and say, anybody will drive down to Yoder's to go have an Amish buffet. So why not stop and watch a 90-minute show as well? So that has been, a passion project that we kind of went back and forth. What are we going to do? And the timing finally seemed right to have a location. And so that runs now until the end of October 28th. And then we have a Christmas show. So we get a lot of, that's dinner theater. So the beauty of that is so many people utilize that. So many companies in the area utilize that as their like company Christmas party. So dinner, show, get some excursion. You're not sitting there talking about work, which inevitably sometimes always happens. But so
the local concept, within 10 or 15 minutes. And I remember, when they changed the parking downtown, they say, we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. People like to park at their front door. But as I get people that are coming to Decatur, they say, I'm going to be working here or there, and I want to be within a 45-minute commute to work. And I'm thinking, you can go 60 miles in 45 minutes. So I think, from an entertainment aspect too, if somebody lives in Chicago or St. Louis and they're going downtown to a game or theater or a restaurant, they're driving 30 to 45 minutes. So what's the difference for us to go to Springfield or Arthur, and vice versa, for others to come this direction too. So that's great to keep that marketing open and make local more of a regional feel than just a, zip code feel.
It really does. And I think we've seen that impact. And I think really that's kind of our focus within the last 10 years within our agency, is that, assuming that, before we had technology, maybe that philosophy did work a lot better. That, you basically just stayed in your little neighborhood and whatnot. But I really do think the expansion and the fact that there's so many options, we have to be able to say, okay, there is so many community ties, and that there is so many things that are happening right
Awesome.
right in our backyard.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of connecting the pieces.
Great.
So, yeah.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to have you back at some point because I know you're going to have a lot of creative activities going on or events. The Christmas show sounds wonderful, and I really think that's something I would want to talk more about.
Absolutely.
In the future. So,
Yeah.
Again, thank you very much, and thanks for coming here today.
Thanks for having me, and let me tell you all about what's going on.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks again for tuning in for another episode of Main Points with Main Place. To check out past or future Main Points, find us at YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.